Welcome. Welcome all of you to this virtual supply chain and logistics business roundtable. We're going to be discussing uncertainty in uncertain logistics world.
Thanks to digitalization, I think over the past decade, in manufacturing particularly, we adopted the philosophy of design anywhere, build anywhere, sell anywhere, service anywhere. Right? So this putting anything anywhere in practice certainly added to the complexities of the supply chain and particularly logistics management. So in the past 12 months, in particular, the supply chain and logistics uncertainty have been an integral part of the disruptions that is taking place in the automotive and industrial sector.
During the last 1 year, right, I'm sure we have all seen the things that we probably have not experienced before. A lot of changes, some good, some bad. And we all have responded in different ways, especially for the folks who are managing supply chain and logistics, for managing all that volatility, all that, the chaos, right? I'm pretty sure if we look back, we all would think probably we could have done a little better.
An important step is mapping the supplier. Know where your suppliers are, not where you send the check, which is what you find in the SAP system, is the headquarters, but where the suppliers actually are. And you tie it to a whole system of locations and alert, and then superimpose the bill of material on it. So once you know that somewhere around the world a supplier is down, you know which parts you're not going to get or going to get less of, which product you are not going to be built, which customers you are not going to serve. So you get immediately the value at risk. And building the right culture. The idea is to prepare several scenarios for any forecast, understanding the organization has to be socialized to the fact that there's no one forecast, that things may change. People are not comfortable speaking truth to power, which can delay responses. So they're also promoting decision-making close to the action. I mentioned Zara when I said when I gave the example of culture before, because in Zara, once the young designers see a change in the market, they have the right immediately to go to manufacturing, procurement, and in 3 weeks they can replenish the stores. Most importantly, one version of the truth. Create systems that every part of the company sees the same information. Finally, something again, it's really interesting that in organizations that are used to dealing with risk and disruption, when something gets very dicey, suddenly you see people referring to expertise rather than rank.
When this started last year, there was no processes or best practices that we had to reference. Really the first step, I think, when everything started last March was really reaching out to the supply chain and having the human factor element, working within your teams and within the global network to make sure everybody personally is okay and how things are going. And then it quickly went to, what is happening with our locations? What locations are essential? What plants will be open? What plants will have reduced capacity? What plants will be closed?
So during this pandemic, since our operations are mainly based in China, and we have about 70-80% of our supply chain located regionalized within China, and there are global other automotive suppliers. And also as a part of NEO, we designed and developed our own electronic modules, which have parts from an expensive processor, which is a critical part, to other passives like capacitors, resistors, which are small global commodities, to ensure a pipeline that is filled and doesn't impact your production. Because in automotive, the production impact is huge. 1 minute of production downtime can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 in a factory, and that's quite expensive. So you have to avoid.
Some of our industrial manufacturing auto folks went down 90% volume. To put it in perspective, some of those same client bases went from 10% to 110% in 6 weeks. So massive strain on supply chains. That word agility was critical in order to execute and service the customers in 2020. And quite frankly, it continues on in 21.
The fortunate opportunity we all had is that these technologies like cloud computing, supply chain visibility platforms that, like BlueYonder, were all available and coming into the market pre-pandemic. So what we really saw was an immediate visibility issue, as you heard from all the panelists. And so we were fortunate to participate with a number of companies to help stand up the end-to-end supply chain visibility platforms that we bring to the market, really to start understanding where those constraints were in more of a reactive manner per se.
Well, in the last 20 years, people have spent a lot of effort in optimizing, making everything efficient, right? That means they, in their true intention, they have tried to, take out what they decided as fact. That means the supply chain and logistics network have become efficient to the extent of being brittle. Now we are talking about resiliency, right? So the question is, can resiliency and efficiency from a supply chain perspective, logistics perspective, can they coexist, or are they mutually exclusive?
Yes, they can coexist. Absolutely, they can coexist. Let me give you an example of Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical company, is a contract with the Pentagon to supply, to give medical supply in case of a sudden war. So how do you do it? Well, in that case, in the Johnson & Johnson, they cannot release any of this inventory until the Pentagon allows it. This is the same way that the strategic petroleum reserves were managed when the U.S. didn't have oil. Only the president could release the strategic petroleum.
What innovative solutions the industry has come up with in the last 12 months of this black swan event? So is the technology the answer? Is it the people, or is it somewhere else?
And what's been changing is the fact that so much more information can be interrogated by technologies like machine learning. You can now change the experience of the user to be more of a narrative. So no longer do you have to have a planner spend hours and hours of time on not only interrogating the data, acquiring the data, but have an ability to truly start gleaning insight into what is the data really telling me, what's the narrative of my business today.
We've partnered with TransPlace over the last probably 4 years to manage our inbound spend on LTL and truckload, and actually a large portion of our outbound as well. So they do provide end-to-end visibility. We've also partnered with TCS on a program with DigiFleet to look at the visibility on our international side. So we have our largest facility in Duncan, South Carolina. We're starting a pilot there, partner with TCS to look at the international side, which has been the most volatile for sure in what's happened in the last 8 months.
The use of machine learning and AI in monitoring supply chain and really with demand accuracy and forecast should be a really great thing going forward, and many of them are incorporating it. That could be one of the tools that we also use. So we might work with partners to use some of the technology that they have that helps us get all the visibility and insights and be flexible.
So using tools that are allowing us to forecast where customer demand is and balancing that against the transportation flowing through the system, we're able to go and basically secure capacity, days ahead of when the actual demand comes. So that's allowing us to lock up carrier commitments and capacity in advance of demand, meaning that we're able to buy it better. We're able to secure it in today's world. That's a big challenge.
You have to make sure that if you have silos within your organization that are working, how to connect these silos and make better decisions based on visibility. So things we have learned, right? Like everybody in the global, we have learned. We know that there is more need of real-time insights and visibility deeper into supply chain. We are looking at how to bring the Logistic 4.0, which is a supply chain visibility end-to-end, and kind of bring it along with Industry 4.0 and make it mesh it together. So it gives us a process that's self-monitoring. It gives us a process that gives us real-time insights, reduces risk mitigation, and also helps us pivot and be flexible and do things as we need based on acceptance basis.
Continued investment in the analytics of the business, right? We believe the data has stories to tell. The trick is, how do you take the data, the story, and make it executionable?
Where historically it was always statistical based, and it was always a big driver was historical data to feed it. Now you're starting to see a complete paradigm shift in the ability to truly predict what's coming out. So that's where we're starting to see a lot of the technologies start to impact a new way of working. Layer is a prerequisite because, you know, it's not just understanding the visibility in a silo, it's understanding the interdependency of that visibility. The next phase is what we're really focusing on today, is this concept of really integrated demand supply planning, where you truly are creating a near real-time experience.
One of the things from a leadership standpoint is that supply chain is definitely seen as a function that can absolutely make or break what is happening with the business, and we will continue to invest in people and technology going forward.
The management of most risk involve prevention, detection, response. There are generic preparation steps and generic management steps that work in every disruption. There are also certain ways that people manage crisis. The first one is to have an emergency management center. Now, frequent communication trumps almost frequent and accurate. I mean, what you don't know, admit you don't know. Don't make it up. Decision-making authority, it is what General Motors call swim your lane. Everybody do their job, do their part there. Suppliers have to be reviewed during the crisis a lot more frequently, and not just the finances, but engineering, quality, a lot of the things that people are doing it. Some people have been doing it weekly. Review of product and customer, sometimes think ahead of time, a priority list, who is more important, and not the name of customers, but what will be the characteristics of the important customers to you. Then finance, when we get into recession, cash become king. People have to be very careful about not lengthening term of payments to suppliers, because especially to critical suppliers, because you may put them in risk. Many companies have reduced the number of SKU during the pandemic. This is an example of General Mills that went from 90 to 50 variety of soups. Finally, plan for recovery. Nothing like a good crisis to understand who are the good customers, who are the suppliers who stay with you, who are the divisions that perform well, which employees are performing well. It's a good test to decide which one you want to keep and which one you don't. Think about what happened if the next pandemic is a massive cyber attack. I'm just saying that let's not fight the last war and have some generic preparation in terms of culture and setting up the corporation to think beyond what we just went through.